Hey, Tony.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, I wanted to just briefly chat with you about the Paris, France incident that occurred just this past week,
Yep.
and kind of get your take on the situation there. Just because I know your background with hand-to-hand combat and self-defense, I thought you'd be a great person to get a good perspective on in terms of what happened there. Could some things have been done to prevent something like that, or um, a lot of people are talking about that, there should have been more guns, and it's a gun solution. And I just wanted to get your perspective on all that.
Yeah. Cool. I appreciate that. And I hate to, ever be like an armchair quarterback after some sort of tragedy. Uh, that happened years ago in Montreal, where I was the kind of the local subject matter expert there, and there was Mark Lepine went in, and there was that mass murder way back. It was 20 years ago. At the University of Montreal, where he had all the guys leave the auditorium and massacred a bunch of women and then killed himself. And I got called going, hey, what should people have done? And it's like I put my hands up and I go, hey, nonviolent posture. I don't want to be that person. Um, the real answer is this. First of all, there's a lot of misunderstandings about French gun law, and I was just educated today, reading a great article that was printed from a writer journalist in France. And in France, you're allowed to have up to 12 guns, and your ammo is restricted. And the author was quite clever in talking about how many guns you actually need, and in that sort of home defense fight, how much ammo do you actually need? And it was it again. It made me think. Ironically, just last night, just looking at the world, and we've got the race baiting, we got the protesters, we've got cops being assaulted and disrespected, and in some cases shot at, the assassinations in New York. And I'm like, holy shit, the world is really in a bad place now. Worst time in history to be a police officer. Uh,
Yeah.
the whole ISIS, I mean, I don't think we've had this much fear, stress, and anxiety since 9/11. But the neat thing about 9/11, if you can call it a neat thing, not the best choice of words, but the world was galvanized. It was very clear who the enemy was, and the world was
Yeah.
galvanized. Right now, we're all over the place, and and so coming back to the whole Paris thing and everything, at the end of the day, it's something that you experienced when you did the course with Jeff and I, is I talk about that if you're scared shitless, unconscious, or dead, there is no next move. That everything starts with awareness and then managing fear. And you can talk about what type of ammo, what type of gun, and So like all of these, the officers outside the front, they could have had, ankle holsters, concealed carry, pistols everywhere, guns everywhere, ammo. But if nothing's happened for like a year and you're sitting in your car checking your text messages, looking the wrong way. I mean, it was an ambush. And the reason I joke about this all the time, people go, how do you counter an ambush? And I go, it's a fucking ambush. You can't counter an
Yeah.
ambush. Right? If it's a real ambush, it's an ambush. And there's always going to be a startle flinch response. There's always going to be a recoil. So unless, you've got like a Spider-Man shit coming out of your hands when you flinch, right? Like your hands and when you do this and you push away danger, you can even see the cop's reaction on the sidewalk when he's hit, right? That he's got a hand up because his physiological self is trying to push away danger. That's not cognition. And so the biggest thing here is, if it's a true ambush, you could be armed to the teeth if you are surprised and you happen to be the first person that's hit. We have an expression in our class: some days you're the bug and some days you're the windshield. And you just can't do anything about that. That's just shit, right? So I could be
Yeah.
sitting there fully armed, but if I'm one of the cartoonists at Hebdo, and I'm like down here, like filling in some shadowing, and that first round hits me, or I get muzzle struck, or, you know, you also need to remember that a lot of the ways we train force on force, think about this, is consensual, pseudo choreographed, and cooperative. Right? Hey guys, we're going to go in here. Remember, don't shoot inside this distance. No contact shooting. Don't shoot the guy in the back if he puts his hands up.
Yeah.
You know this. And we're going to use not real ammo. We're going to use, you know, UTM, airsoft, paintball, simunition, whatever it is. So there's a lot of organization where I go. For example, hey Bryan, let's work some counter ambush, home invasion stuff. Are you free tomorrow at 3? And you go, no, my schedule is busy. Can you let's do the ambush at 5? Well, 5's not good for me. Let's practice the counter ambush at 5:15. Make sure nobody's home, and let's make sure we're safe and show our, you know, our training weapons. And so you guys, you get the joke. And I've been saying this for 20 years in the tactical community. When I would say this, people get defensive, right? Like people will listen to that and they'll think I'm talking about them. And I'm not talking about anybody. I'm talking about us. How do we best prepare for a worst case scenario? And the answer is to recognize that all training is fake. It can be dangerous and you got to be careful, but it's not real until it happens. And so I've always said, and this is like a line from an interview I did like 26 years ago, you need to come up with the most realistic fake stuff possible. In other words, what I'm talking about, inserting the term fake in there, is that we got to recognize that we're doing simulations, we're replicating, we're imagining and then reverse engineering the training, and it just has to be as effective as possible. And how does this tie to, you know, I'm on one of my notorious tangents. I just get so fired up with this shit. How does this tie into, you can't go, what should they have done and what aren't, you know, what, you know, what they could have had is, 3 security entry points where you can't get in a building, right? If you think you're a target, no one should be able to walk in your front door. And so, you know, maybe there would have been a shootout between point A and point B, you know, with some armed guards. But if it's a true ambush, and no doubt they knew exactly where they were going and when they were going to go, right? I mean, these guys were very precise. So you could have been armed to the teeth, but if the ambush can still unfold, there's nothing to do. So the short answer, the spiritual and philosophical answer is, you need to be able to protect yourself and your family. God forbid something happens, and that doesn't start with a gun. That starts with creating better awareness of what's out there, what the possible threat is, and then understanding your awareness with respect to, first and foremost, your ability to identify a threat and manage your fear. And that's an empty hand diagnosis. The threat mitigation or threat management is, you know, can I recognize it? Can I act on that? And what could I do as the naked warrior? What could I do if I had no equipment? And now, because there's lots of, if you read it's an old classic called The Fog of War, about, you know, soldiers who shot high, shot low, or didn't shoot in battle because of the emotional duress of the situation. So it didn't matter that they were armed, they weren't able to pull the trigger. And so as citizens, you know, because we're not part of the, you know, the hunting crew, right? As citizens, we practice with knives, we practice with guns, we practice with improvised weapons. It's all great and you know, and dandy to, you know, do all these technical moves. But I always say this is like when you actually see a real fight on CCTV camera, dashboard, helmet cam, iPhones, do you see any martial arts? Do you see anything technical? Do you see anybody? Yeah. So all of that stuff that we practice goes out the window in the real fight. I don't even know if I answered your question, but it was fun.
No, I think you did. I think that's a good recap, and I definitely appreciate your perspective, and I hope everyone that watches this will too. I think that, you know, a lot of us get caught up in, you know, saying things like it's a gun solution and all the time, and I don't think enough people stop and think about just the situational awareness aspect of that comes into play with stuff like that too.
Yeah, there's so many factors in this, from, you know, there's the religious, political stuff, and that's nothing that you and I can fix. that's an awareness, and it's that's a way bigger problem. Uh, the thing that I can deal with as a consultant is just trying to shake people and say, hey, listen, God forbid this was like in your personal space, and you have a nano moment to be your own bodyguard or to be a courageous bystander. What skill set do you have?
Yeah.
And so it's looking at that and taking, we use the play on words like responsibility, and put the, tear that apart and go, responsibility can also be read as the ability to respond. So if I've got this responsibility to protect my family, what is my ability to respond to whether the threat is my kid is choking, whether the threat is my kid just cut themselves, and then you let your imagination unfold. I'm at the park, reading a book, letting my kid play over there, and now there's like a guy in a trench coat, opening up, and I don't think he's selling fucking watches, right? Right. So like, what do I do there? And then, what you do is it's scary, I think, for people like you have some tactical background, and you've trained, and you continue to train. I think what's scary for a lot of people, like if you look at the message boards and you read, you see people going, like on the Facebook replies, right, is I'd kill that guy. I'd have done this. That's why I carry. And whenever I see somebody go, that's why I carry all the time, I go, listen, no, you don't. When you're in the shower, you don't have your gun on. And if you do, send me a picture. I want to see that, right? And the reality is, you get ambushed, start a flinch, those hands come up, you go to push away danger, or you're eating a burger, you're writing a ticket, your hands are down somewhere. You're not walking around like, on point, doing this. And so it's cool to have those answers, but we need to step back and understand that if I've got skill with no awareness, I'm still going to get hit. Yeah. And if I have awareness with no skill, I'm going to be scared shitless and then get hit. And so we always, I don't know if you remember that from the course, so I talk about awareness with no skill, you got a big problem. Skill with no awareness, you got a big problem. You need to marry the two. So that's really the message. And probably somebody watching this through your audience has some tactical inclination. It's an ITS, interview, right? So, but it's like the rest of the populace is going, holy shit, what do I do? Because the idea of visualizing, even for somebody who just thinks about home defense and protecting their family, the idea of going up against two guys with AK-47s is frightening, and it should be. But we don't need to do that. We need to start with the be your own bodyguard, and then evolve to a courageous bystander. What would I do? And then start thinking about, okay, what's that next level? If zombies attacked your city, what would you do? At some point, if they were killing everybody and eating everybody, at some point, a bunch of us would say, how do we kill these guys? And we would create a line, right? And we would do something. So, a little metaphor.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate your perspective, and I think that everyone else will too. So thanks for your time and your outlook on what some ideas are to think about for the future. So thanks for all that, man.
Okay, man. Cool. I'll speak to you soon.
All right. Thanks.